If you worked during the 1990s, you'll remember a professional world that feels like ancient history now. You'll remember the sound of dial-up modems screeching to life, the weight of a pager clipped to your belt, the satisfaction of actually finishing work when you left the office, and that distinctive smell of freshly photocopied documents. This wasn't just a different decade, it was a completely different way of working. And if you lived through it, these memories will transport you back to a time when work actually stayed at work. Picture this. You're sitting at your desk on a Monday morning in 1995, and your biggest technological challenge is programming the timer on the Office VCR to record that training video. There's no email checking every 5 minutes, no smartphones buzzing with urgent notifications, no video calls interrupting your lunch. Work had boundaries that actually meant something. When you walked out that office door at 5:30, you were done. Genuinely done. Your boss couldn't reach you until tomorrow morning, and that was perfectly normal. The office itself was a marvel of beige efficiency. Everything was beige. The computers were beige towers the size of small refrigerators, humming constantly like mechanical beehives. The monitors were massive cathode ray tubes that could double as boat anchors, displaying green text on black screens or, if you were lucky, 16 glorious colors. The keyboards clicked with mechanical precision, each keystroke announcing itself to the entire office, and the mouse, a ball mouse that collected enough lint and debris to knit a small sweater. Photocopying was an art form that required genuine skill. You'd stand at that massive machine, feeding documents one by one, listening to the rhythmic whoosh and click of the mechanism. Paper jams were inevitable disasters that required careful extraction of crumpled sheets from mysterious internal compartments. The smell of toner was everywhere, and if you made 100 copies of anything, your fingerprints would be stained black for hours. Double-sided copying meant manually flipping every single sheet and hoping you didn't mess up the order. Communication happened through actual conversations. If you needed to talk to someone, you walked to their desk or picked up the phone. Email existed, but it was clunky and slow, reserved for formal communications or technical discussions. Most messages traveled through handwritten notes, phone calls, or face-to-face meetings. The water cooler wasn't just a metaphor for gossip. It was an actual gathering place where real conversations happened, where office politics played out, and where you learned more about your colleagues than any digital profile could ever reveal. Lunch breaks were sacred rituals. You actually left your desk, sometimes even left the building, and had proper meals without checking your phone because smartphones didn't exist. Conversations during lunch were about weekend plans, family updates, or debates about last night's television programs. Nobody documented their sandwich for social media or worried about responding to messages. Lunch was lunch, a genuine break from work that recharged you for the afternoon. Filing was a physical activity that required organizational skills and muscle memory. Those grey metal filing cabinets lined office walls like soldiers, each drawer packed with manila folders in perfect alphabetical order. Finding a document meant knowing the system, walking to the right cabinet, and physically searching through papers. Important documents had multiple copies stored in different locations because losing something meant it was gone forever. There was no cloud backup, no digital recovery. If you lost the original, you started over. Meetings happened in actual rooms with actual people sitting around actual tables. There were no remote participants joining by video, no screen sharing, no digital presentations projected from laptops. Everything was printed out beforehand and distributed in neat stacks. Charts and graphs were hand-drawn or created with specialized software that took hours to master. Presentations meant overhead projectors and transparent sheets, carefully prepared and positioned by hand. Research meant trips to the library or calls to experts. You couldn't just Google something and get instant answers. Information gathering was deliberate, methodical, and time-consuming. Trade magazines arrived by mail and were passed around the office like precious artifacts. Industry news travelled slowly through professional networks and quarterly publications. Knowledge was harder to acquire, but somehow felt more valuable because of the effort required. The pace of business moved at human speed. Decisions took time because gathering information took time. Projects had realistic timelines because everyone understood the physical limitations of communication and collaboration. Deadlines existed, but they were based on what people could actually accomplish without digital acceleration. There was time to think, time to plan, time to execute properly. Cute. Coffee breaks weren't just caffeine stops. They were social institutions where relationships formed and office culture developed. The coffee pot was a central gathering point. Conversations sparked over shared cups, and friendships developed through daily interactions that couldn't be replicated through instant messaging or video calls. The dress code was non-negotiable, and everyone understood the rules without needing an employee handbook. Men wore suits or dress shirts with ties, pressed trousers, and polished leather shoes. Women wore blazers, blouses, and skirts or dresses that hit at appropriate lengths. Casual Friday was a radical concept that some progressive companies introduced with strict guidelines about what constituted acceptable casual wear. Jeans were forbidden territory in most offices, and trainers were absolutely unthinkable unless you worked in a warehouse. Your appearance reflected your professionalism, and everyone took pride in looking the part. Computers were mysterious beasts that required specialized knowledge to operate effectively. Booting up meant waiting several minutes while the machine wheezed and clicked through its startup sequence. Software came on multiple floppy disks that you fed into the computer one by one, praying none were corrupted. Saving work was a deliberate act of preservation because crashes were frequent and devastating. You learned to save obsessively, backing up important files onto additional floppy disks that you labeled and stored like precious treasures. Word processing was revolutionary compared to typewriters, but still primitive by today's standards. Spell check was basic and grammar check didn't exist. Formatting documents required understanding complex codes and commands. Creating a simple table meant hours of careful spacing and alignment. Fonts were limited and exciting. Comic Sans was considered cutting-edge design, and choosing between Times New Roman and Arial felt like a major creative decision. The office hierarchy was clearly defined and visible in everything from desk size to parking spaces. Corner offices with windows were reserved for senior management, while junior staff occupied interior cubicles or shared spaces. Your position in the company was immediately apparent from where you sat, what equipment you had access to, and how people addressed you. Respect for authority was expected and demonstrated through formal communication and behavior. Travel for business meant actual travel agents who booked flights over the phone, printed paper tickets, and provided detailed itineraries in manila envelopes. Hotel reservations required phone calls and confirmation numbers written on index cards. Getting directions meant physical maps, written instructions, and asking strangers for help when you got lost. Business cards were essential networking tools that you collected and stored in dedicated organizers, carefully catalogued for future reference. Productivity was measured differently when multitasking meant having 2 projects on your desk simultaneously, rather than 17 browser tabs open while responding to instant messages. Focus came naturally because distractions were limited and manageable. You worked on one task until completion before moving to the next. Deep work wasn't a revolutionary concept requiring special techniques. It was simply how work got done. Banking and financial transactions required physical presence and patience. Payday meant actual paychecks that you deposited at bank branches during limited hours. Expense reports were handwritten forms submitted with paper receipts, taped or stapled to backing sheets. Calculating totals required adding machines or calculators, and errors meant starting over completely. Corporate credit cards were rare privileges reserved for senior employees or specific business functions. Training and professional development happened through workshops, seminars, and actual classrooms with real instructors. Learning new skills meant attending scheduled sessions, taking notes by hand, and practicing techniques with colleagues. Certification programs required months of preparation and physical examinations. Knowledge transfer happened through mentorship relationships, where experienced workers taught newcomers through observation and hands-on guidance. The end of the workday was a celebration of completion rather than a temporary pause in an endless stream of connectivity. Computers were shut down, desks were cleared, and office lights were switched off. Commuting home provided genuine transition time between professional and personal life. Evenings belonged to family, hobbies, and relaxation without the constant pull of work-related communications demanding immediate attention. Office parties and company events were elaborate affairs that required weeks of planning and coordination. Holiday celebrations meant decorated workspaces, catered meals, and genuine socializing among colleagues who knew each other as real people rather than email addresses or video call participants. Retirement parties honored decades of service with speeches, gifts, and emotional farewells that marked the end of entire careers spent with single companies. Looking back at the 1990s workplace, what really makes you emotional isn't any single memory. It's the accumulated feeling of a professional world that trusted you to be human. The boundaries were real because technology hadn't erased them yet. Your worth wasn't measured by your response time to emails or your availability outside office hours. You were valued for the quality of your work, not the quantity of your digital interactions. We gained incredible efficiency and lost something irreplaceable. We can now work from anywhere, communicate instantly with anyone, access unlimited information, and collaborate across continents. But we sacrifice the peace of leaving work at work, the depth of face-to-face relationships, and the satisfaction of completing tasks without constant interruption. The 1990s workplace wasn't perfect. It had its limitations, inefficiencies, and frustrations that modern technology has rightfully solved. But for those who experienced it, there was a humanity to professional life that feels almost extinct now. The coffee breaks, the water cooler conversations, the genuine lunch hours, and the blessed silence of evenings without notifications. If you worked during the 1990s, these memories are yours forever. The dial-up modems, the filing cabinets, the photocopier battles, and that sweet satisfaction of truly finishing your workday. We were part of the last generation to experience work as a place you went to, not something that followed you everywhere. Give this video a thumbs up if these memories touched your heart. Share it with someone who remembers these times. What do you miss most about working in the 90s?